called The Old One, and
Kenny.
It was me, guys. Sorry.
Deadly magical fog pollutes the land. Kenny.
Always foggy.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 423, and it is a director's episode! The question of the week is as follows. What unplayed game currently in your Steam library do you most want to play?
I'll go first because I actually have an answer this time.
Okay, I like that.
That's real. Although I'm going to give you two answers because I couldn't decide.
That's fine.
Terraria or The Binding of Isaac.
Interesting. You haven't played
both
Terraria.
of those are great.
Nope.
See, I don't think you'll like Binding. I do think you'll like Terraria.
This is such a good question.
Really?
This is a good question of the week. Kenny,
Thank you.
both of those games are fan-freaking-tastic, and if you've been staring at them, you need to try them.
I mean, I have them. I just have other stuff
I know.
playing.
That's a good problem, but I'm excited that you have those waiting on you.
Isn't Terraria up the alley of that David Brevik game, It Lurks Below, that we played?
Yeah. Which I love.
Right, I know.
I played
so
much of that game
You went
until
hard.
I accidentally ruined one of my characters and got so mad.
And never returned?
I'm wondering
never
if
touched it again.
Brevik's Diablo-fied version of Terraria is what pulled you, like the character progression, and less so the exploration and stuff and collecting from like Terraria. We'll see.
We'll see.
You could like it still though.
I think I'll still like it, but I don't know if I'll actually like it as much just because of who I am.
Nolan?
Y'all are gonna be mad at me. Mine's like kind of it's GTA 5.
Kenny will be mad at you. Kenny, for some reason, decided he's just going to be a guy that hates GTA.
No, I don't hate it.
I don't love
people who like it.
I don't love it like some people do, right? I like it, and I really liked 4. I thought 4's story was actually really solid. You're like this immigrant in kind of New York City, and you're trying to like, I don't know, it's pretty good.
Is 5 the very latest one? Or is it the one before
5 and 5 online.
It's the latest, but it's 10
It's 10
plus.
years. It's so old.
It's 10 years old, and...
Oh, so it's not the one that's coming out that everyone's like, you're a girl and we hate it because we're
GTA
dumb.
6,
Why would that be in my
Steam
Steam
library? Which will not be
library?
here for a long time.
That's what I just didn't know if it had released yet.
No, 5 is very old at this point, but it's the newest one, and I intend to play the story mode. They kind of started pushing GTA Online, which I think is so eye-roll. I want to play the story mode, and I want to see what that's about. So,
I'll allow it.
I had, when I first started taking show notes this week and developed the question of the week, I had as an answer Dead Cells, but I have now played it and beaten
you played it.
Wow,
you got all the way through it?
No,
yes.
Those games, those games, you
it's like
unlock
Hades.
a ton of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, he didn't complete it.
No.
He just beat it.
No, but many people don't. Most people don't complete Dead Cells.
I didn't complete
massive.
Hades.
Like there's so much, but I did beat Hades on my 9th run. That's the correlation there. So, but I'm still going through, and there's still so much. And I just got all the DLC, which there's a Castlevania DLC.
one. Yes.
I need to watch you play this game.
It's really good.
I watched some Nolan when
I was streaming in general this week. Y'all could have hopped on.
You got to tell me.
Well,
Yeah,
it
you
would
didn't
just
drop
be
that
on
one.
Discord regularly.
No. It's fluid gameplay though, huh?
It's pretty fluid. Actually, new news that came out this week that I don't know if I'm excited about. You know how I really enjoyed that new Prince of Persia game?
Yes.
There's the Dead Cells creators just released at that event, the indie event, a Prince of Persia, Dead Cells like or whatever that's called.
Its own game
or
DLC?
Up with. Yeah, a new game, different game.
Then you are going to play that game.
Yeah, you'll love it.
Yeah. Anyways, Dead Cells is not my answer because now I've played and am playing. I've got two other great answers. One is Doom Eternal. It's that second new Doom. I played the first one and it's so much fun and ridiculous.
It's so good, yeah.
I think you'll love it. But
it'd be so much
metal
fun.
music.
Roll my eyes a little on principle.
A better answer that I've had here for a while. I don't think either of you have touched the series. Maybe Nolan. I need to play the second one, Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah, I haven't played those. I haven't played the first one. I know.
I get it confused with another game.
It's not
Maybe
Hollow
I played
Knight,
Ori
and it's not Child of Light.
It's not Child of Light?
No.
I think it's Child of Light that I've
But
played.
it looks like and could be confused with Child of Light.
Yes, you should play that and also stream it.
Metroidvania, beautiful. It's one of those games that, like, when you look online of like what game brought you to tears, they're like the first 2 minutes of the Ori games. So like,
I intend to play them as well, but they're not in my library. Surprisingly, I haven't bought them yet.
If you're anything like us, you have a large and beckoning backlog of games to get through, and as you play through them, make sure to take breaks, get up, walk around, do some exercises, because if you don't, you'll likely develop fat rolls.
Okay.
Like in our retro game of the week, Demon Souls.
Overview.
First things first, we'd like to welcome Eddie from the Smashing Bricks Retro Gaming Podcast to the show. Eddie, take a moment, introduce yourself to us and to our NGP community.
Hey guys, my name is Eddie Inzauto. I'm the host of the Smashing Bricks Retro Gaming Podcast. I was at one time a games journalist. I used to go to all the big events. I went out to E3 like 8 times and then got out of that and ended up working in TV, and now I'm back just doing a retro gaming podcast because it's fun. And then about a year into that, I was searching. I found you guys. I was like, whoa, I love these guys. They're doing what I'm doing, but probably better. So I listened to all of your episodes from 1 to whatever I was up to when I caught up, and here we are.
Oh, wow. You've cleared the catalog.
That's crazy.
Powered through the early stuff.
We should give out achievements when people do that. How should we do that? Neuralink?
I've thought about that. Having achievements for our community would be a fun thing. Not Neuralink, but some kind of achievements.
No, like pins or tattoos that we force you to get.
Tattoos.
Tattoo their bodies.
You send a tattoo artist to our home and forcibly... No, maybe not.
And
I like it. Eddie,
great.
Always interesting to talk to other people in the biz, is what I like to say. But
stop it.
Your podcast, what's the format? What do you do? Do y'all play a game? Do y'all just talk about a game each week?
So it's actually only monthly because I'm low stress in my life. But we play through a game that is selected, not randomized, just something that me and or my guest would like to go and revisit or visit for the first time. Then we'll jump on, give a little history about the game, a little bit of our own histories, our personal experience with it, and then talk about the retro replay experience, and then say whether it was worth revisiting or not.
Nice. Hey, the E3 thing is fascinating. 8 years. Would you still be going to it if it existed?
No, I stopped in 2016, I think. I just kind of I just exited the industry. Yeah. Before it got lame.
Eddie, you could have selected any game that was 15 years old or older, and you've almost failed at doing so. The game that you selected just became available in February of this year. So just a couple of months ago, and that was just in Japan because it wasn't in North America until October. So
we're cheating a little bit, but we've done that before.
No, we all play the Japanese version.
Yeah, this is technical.
Well, I played the Asian import with the English language option just to stay up to spec here.
Okay. Did you actually?
No.
Okay, I was like, wow. Sick.
Eddie, why did you pick Demon Souls?
Because it spawned the greatest video game franchise in the history of ever.
Based and true?
Yeah, based and true.
That's true.
Thank you, Nolan.
This was the beginning of Mario?
Yeah. After this came Doki Doki Panic,
Nice.
It inspired many.
Yeah.
Demon's Souls is a 2009 action role-playing game.
Best genre.
/ survival horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary for sure.
Are we not just calling it a Soulslike?
No.
No? Is the first one a Souls-like?
It's
right.
It birthed. That's much more important than that, Kenny. It birthed it. We can't call it a Souls-like.
I'm pretty sure we called Metroid a Metroidvania.
Not the first one.
No, I didn't. I certainly did not call it that.
Okay, well, it birthed a genre and it kind of defined it. So I think that's worth pointing out.
This is the first game that we're playing on the podcast for the PlayStation 3.
Also huge.
Yes.
Also doesn't feel retro.
Oh,
right.
All
in any sense of the word.
Mine, like, I pulled mine down. I don't have a copy of the game, but I was like, yeah, no, this is super new in my mind. This just came out.
Yeah.
Demon's Souls is developed by From Software. Were they anything before this? So I know because we got to provide a little bit of context because Kingsfield, which we played on the podcast, don't remember, but is actually like the progenitor of Demon's Souls, and it's from FromSoft. And so I know that they were around, I guess, but is this the one that really put them on the map? Were they already on the map?
Armored Core was also super popular, I think.
Not
didn't
here.
They do Armored Core?
Not so much in the States,
I didn't know that
but
they did
yes.
Armored Core.
Yes, Kenny is correct.
Well, this is when Miyazaki joined them. He took over this game.
Miyazaki
so this was a big shift.
He did a couple of Armored Core games, I think 4, and then like they always do like a side game to their main games, and this was his first like of this genre, the action RPG, like this was Miyazaki. So yes, game over.
Yeah.
And then it was published by Sony Computer Entertainment in Japan, Atlas USA in North America, and Namco Bandai in the PAL regions. And let's talk just a moment about Souls-like games, or at least this specific twist of the genre, because if I was asked to invent the opposite of Kenny's preferred genre, I would probably invent Souls-like.
I'm so sorry, Kenny.
Like,
it's okay. I don't know if that's completely fair, but he's not coming totally out of left.
My guess is, and I really want Kenny to be real here, even though we have a guest on. I really want to know, not right now, but as this episode builds out, if and how much he loathed this game.
Yeah, you mispronounced that. So you're right. Let's analyze this. Kenny loves turn-based strategy games.
Relatively slow.
Real-time strategy.
Oh, real-time.
I'll do real-time strategy.
Okay, but still slower pace, building up your army, building up your mats. This is quick thinking, fear. It's fear, and you have to be super coordinated. So
I'll never live down the time I scared myself into the hiccups during the first play.
Is that Far Cry
from a non-scary game? Far Cry.
Yeah, so
a guy shot at me one time, and I scared myself so bad I got the hiccups.
I'm out of gun.
Kenny doesn't like scary games natively, and extremely purposefully difficult games. I feel like is also not your preferred experience.
That's generally true as well. Yes.
Which I get that. That's why I think Souls-like has a specific audience that's like, torture me, please. Because
you're not wrong.
Before this, there were difficult games, but it wasn't someone just begging. It wasn't saying, gamers, you need to beg us to punish you and like it. And this is what happened with Souls-like.
Eddie, did you play this when it came out?
I played this before it came out. I was sent like a made DVD Blu-ray with printed on it Demon Souls from Atlas, and I played it with just the game journalist who had it early. So I played that one. Then it came out. I bought the real copy. I played that one, and I've revisited it a few times throughout the years. And actually this time, this is crazy.
Super sick.
I went to play the original on my PS3, and I got to like level 25, and my PS3 died. So I had to suddenly this week go out and buy a PS5 and get the new one just to replay it.
Okay.
Hey,
Well,
that's
you
really
had
funny.
to.
Yeah.
You and Nolan had to go play this remake.
This is the first time that any of us three ever purchased a new console to play the retro game of the week.
Yeah.
You had to do that too, Eddie?
Nolan?
Wait, did your
Nolan
PS3
also
crap
had
out?
to buy himself a PS5.
My PS3 did not crap out. I intentionally chose the path of playing the remake. Now, I played the original this week too, not the whole thing, but I did get a good experience with the PS3 version. But yes, I went to Best Buy. I bought a PS5 Slim with the Spider-Man 2 bundle, and I played Demon's Souls remake.
Sure. I mean, if you're gonna play it, you might as well get the new one, right?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Everyone says it's exactly the same.
Dustin might actually try.
Are you returning it at the end of this week? That would be the only thing that it's okay.
No, I'm definitely not returning it. It's super sick. In fact, boom.
Oh yeah.
Best controller.
Nolan now owns a PS5, and
Wow, look at
I
that.
went
All right,
out
Kenny.
and got a PS5 this. I didn't. I
you
have
borrowed
one
that.
from my brother.
Xbox
The
360.
Okay, let me give the story, just the overview of this, because I would argue that although there are stories in these Souls-like games, especially with this one, Demon's Souls, it's more of like the setting is what is unfolding the story. That's kind of the centerpiece of the game, rather than like a narrative that is growing and expanding as you're playing.
It's a kind of surprising perspective, because for me, I'm familiar with the games a little bit, watching, Nolan play a little bit of Elden Ring, seeing I know like the idea of hard, difficult bosses, go grind yourself into them, figure them out, then it's rewarding, and you go, grinding. But because of that, I expected very little story. So I came into this, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with how much world building there was, how much kind of lore to set things up there were. And I know they tell it more through like environment than through like overt storytelling, but I was the opposite. I thought there was more of it. No, you thought there was less.
Souls games don't have story; they have lore. That's how this works. Actually,
that's fair. It was well established and started. Lore.
Yeah, they had a nice
did a
exposition
good job of explaining,
telling you, "Hey, this is what's happening to Boletaria in this world, and now you're in it. Go for it."
Yeah. And you expand the lore not necessarily through story moments, but through finding items and seeing two bodies hanging from the ramparts that are actually tied back to someone. Like, it does a lot more environmental storytelling.
I think as you go farther, that's probably true. The beginning, which is probably where I spent more of my time than you guys did, because just difficulty, but whatever else. They front load a lot of those actual moments. When you talk to the monumental, and like you get some of these like overt kind of like here's what's going on moments, and they're well done.
The kingdom is consumed by a dark being called the Old One, and
Kenny.
Me, guys. Sorry.
Deadly magical fog pollutes the land. Kenny.
Always foggy.
Glad we're in separate rooms based on that.
Yeah. There's a reason for everything. A demon army has been raised, and you are one of many adventurers that is entering the fog that is engulfing the land in order to defeat the demons and the Old One once and for all.
Gameplay.
At the beginning of every Souls-like game, you select a character class.
Yeah.
No. Not Sekiro.
Not in Sekiro.
Oh,
But,
come on, Dustin.
Which is my one reference, by the way. And I don't think Kenny has any reference to the Souls-like series, and Nolan and Eddie
A little
have
bit,
plenty.
but passively. More
You
watching
watch.
people play than playing.
You have so many games that you've watched people play, which is just a weird
I get it.
and great
Twitch-
thing. But it's
Twitch
not on
culture.
Twitch. It's in real life.
Even better.
His wife's a better gamer. Yeah, she's just like owning you.
Okay. But that's you'll have to tell me how important these classes are, but it sets it up as an important thing. And there's a variety of classes. So you've got everything from like a knight, a priest, a thief, a wanderer, plenty of others that have different stats and have different armor setups. I don't know if they function differently, but I want to. You can fill us in on that, but also I would love to know what everybody started as this week or what you played as. So I played as a knight. Just it's kind of, I don't know, just stereotypical, right, for the dark fantasy that we're doing.
Love the armor design though.
Is that a bad decision?
Well, you had the heavy roll to start, which kind of stinks. It would have helped you to like take off some of that heavy armor that the knight starts with to give you an easier time in the beginning.
But then I'd be more vulnerable.
You would, but if you don't get
walk around
hit,
naked in these games half the time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I did notice even in the first play, I didn't actually know what it was called, the fat roll and the fast roll and things like that, but I could tell something was wrong because this boy was chunky when he would land.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if this was a great choice or not. There were things about it I liked, but I played as royalty.
Good choice.
Good,
which let me have some magic. I think took the edge off of some of the difficulty early on.
For sure.
I don't know if that sort of starting level difference on that character made things easier or harder. I wasn't sure, but it felt like an outlier, but it felt like an interesting one as you were looking at their stats and whatever else. So that's what
It's the easy choice. It makes the early
Oh,
game
is it?
easier.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. Oh, well then that might explain some things.
I forgot there was magic because I don't for a knight you don't. That's not something
Right,
you
just
rely on.
run in and swing your sword around.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they wouldn't even offer to teach you magic if you're not smart enough in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They'll be like, this guy can't handle this, and go on.
They actually look through the console and judge you as a person.
Yeah, Psychomantis style. Okay, I started Barbarian, so I started with the club.
Okay.
No fat roll, quick roll.
Do you typically do that kind of class for these games?
No, I pick all over in these games, like all over. I picked Thief in Dark Souls the first time I played it. I picked like Knight in Dark Souls 3 or whatever.
Eddie, who'd you play as this week?
I did royalty also because I've never played with magic in this game, and it really made the beginning easy to start up, and it trivialized some of the most annoying parts of the game, like the poison bugs in the swamp.
Yeah, there were moments that I could tell, like, oh, this if I had a spell right now, like, come on. But Dustin, to kind of come back to the original point of the class choosing, in these games, it doesn't really matter. Your starting stats differ, yes, and so that matters if you have a game plan. But movesets, no. It's all tied to your weapon, basically, and what you choose to invest in. So if you want to use a two-handed weapon, you're going to have to put in the required stats to wield that efficiently, and then look at the scaling of that weapon, and that's how you kind of power up. So kind of what looks cool or whatever you
if you started as a knight and then dumped a bunch of points into intelligence and magic or whatever, you could then become that archetype.
Yeah,
I like that. It gives you complete variability on how you're going to play. No, but Kenny, because you can play completely in the archetype that you chose. Like, that's totally up to you.
Yeah,
I know, but I don't know. It sort of takes away some of the replayability for me. I'd rather, if you're choosing an archetype, I'd rather you sort of like be signing up for that archetype for the playthrough, and maybe get some bonuses and some like negatives. I prefer that mode generally, but it's not like a complaint. It's fine that you have this freedom, and it does help you cater a little bit. Like if you're a magic user, but you need some slightly better armor or want to use a sword a little bit situationally or whatever, you can you can hedge a little bit, which is nice. So
I think the thing is you just make your archetype. Like you say, okay, this game I'm just playing as this, and you go for it. Like you could put 60
and I think that's what I would
strength.
probably do.
Be like, I'm club boy. You know?
Probably diminishing returns at that point. But
one of the characteristics of this series and these kinds of games is that you're going to die, and you're going to die a lot. And so you are, which by the way, in my first play, I know this is not something worth bragging about necessarily, but I'm going to, only died when I'm supposed to, on that first boss that
Who said you're supposed to die?
You're supposed to die. Can you not die? Yes, but not when you play it the first time.
Yeah.
Well,
only
I
if
died
you're...
too.
No
I
one's
died too.
judging you.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I don't.
Thank you.
Well, this is the first time I played it, so I've never beaten that. But if I will one day continue to start a new character until I beat him, so there's that.
My point being, first time I played it, getting through and the the intro stuff and not dying, probably not the most difficult, especially if you played it before. But after that, I died consistently, and one of the mechanics of these kinds of games is that as you're killing and surviving, you're receiving souls, and that is a currency of sorts. I mean, really straight up a currency, meaning that you can use it to buy new items. You can also use those souls to upgrade your character. But when you die, which you're going to do, it's not game over. You resurrect at a certain spot, and you're able to go back and collect that. I don't know the exact terminology, but the souls that you left behind, and get them all back. And so as long as you're able to make it back to that point to collect those souls, and you can keep building up. But that is a massive mechanic here that is so much fun because it makes every move meaningful, but it also makes every encounter absolutely threatening.
Yeah.
And especially in this game, like you mentioned how difficulty is a big part of the Souls series and related games. Well, in this game, it was a little bit different from where it ended up, right? In the later games, you ended up in these giant boss fights that make you play at like pitch perfect gameplay for very, very long periods of time just to get through the boss. Whereas this one, the bosses, the first one's really hard, but a lot of them were not top tier difficulty, but the levels getting up to them were a real test of your resolve and ability to stay focused. And I think that's a cool
that's
difference.
a super interesting. That was very interesting to me, coming to this game after playing the entirety of the Souls series. Which, by the way, I misspoke last week. I haven't played Bloodborne. I always forget, but now I can because I have a PS5, and I know that one's supposed to be magical. But yes, the boss fights here felt overall a little less punishing than what I'm used to. And I know that sounds ridiculous to you guys, I know, because they are these threatening, like scary, hard to deal with challenges. But yeah, coming back to the beginning of this, you can see the difference in level design and boss design and how over time they started to balance that a little better. So yeah, I want us to talk deeply about bosses, but also I want to talk about the stage design too. So I'm letting Dustin and Kenny drive because I'll just keep talking, and I think Eddie will too. So.
Yeah. Nolan, we could just go do our own podcast after that.
Yeah, we can do an episode on Demon Souls.
Well, we're on the
Patrons
bosses
only.
right now, so let's talk about them. I felt like I only got through a few, but that they each had. If you figure out what their weakness is, then they are not that difficult. So, for example, the first big, slime boss, it's about getting
Phalanx.
Say it again.
Phalanx.
Okay, I thought you said
Phalanx.
Which would be a different kind of boss. But if you're able to get to the back of that boss, it's unguarded, and you're able to do damage there. And then on top of that, I think it's probably weak to fire. It at least seemed like it was weak to fire, and that helped do AOE to the other like little minions that it spawned. And then another
That boss returns later in the series, by the way.
Oh, really?
It's in Dark Souls 3, right, Eddie?
Phalanx. Wait, why was it in Dark Souls 3?
It's definitely in one of them, and they do that with a couple bosses. There's another boss too that I fought this week that was like, oh, Dark Souls 1.
You've seen
Yeah,
this
it's one of the ones in one of the painted worlds.
Yep.
Yeah.
My point, if I'm correct, is that I think that each boss, they're difficult like bosses are. They're not crazy difficult like you find maybe in Elden Ring, and they all have something to figure out. And if you figure out that mechanic, then it makes them a lot, more attainable.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm not through the entirety of the game yet, but Speaking from experience, not all bosses have a one weakness. Like it's not in the same kind of traditional sense of a boss fight like Mega Man would be, where like there is a weakness to this boss. I think some of them are just like not weak to anything, but yes, there. And like another example, I don't know if you mentioned the Tower Knight. If you can break his poise, which is this hidden mechanic, it's like the enemy's stamina, then he'll fall and then his head is exposed, and that will do like way more damage. So yeah, I think I like that because it allows you to kind of explore, and you're gonna die, and so you can keep trying new things until you do find that one weakness, and it feels really good.
I got to know how far you guys got while we're talking about bosses, because I'm ready to talk about ones that are a little further along, and I don't know if spoilers would
You can talk about that. That's always a bad question to ask on this podcast, because...
no, spoilers are fine, but yeah, I didn't get super far at all.
It's going to vary depending on the week and the game, but specifically... when you give us a very difficult game that we're playing the first stage over and over again, then you've got to know we're not going to get as far as some games.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll tell you. I am not okay with spoilers, actually, Kenny. At least not like thought. You know, you can definitely speak to bosses and experiences later on. I'll forget. But I am in, so I've beaten world, I'm going to call them World 1, 1, 1,
They
2.
do
1.
that, but I don't know how to track that, honestly. So.
It's just counting when
just
you go.
Arkstone?
I know how to
Yeah,
count.
when you go to touch the Arkstone like sword thing,
Like
it'll fast travel.
First Arkstone is 1.
Yeah.
And then the second within that is what they call 1, 2.
Yeah.
That makes sense, but...
Well, the next Archstone would be World 2, and then the
Yeah, but
travel
2,
points
1,
would be
2,
2,
2,
yes.
that's what he's saying, yeah.
So I beat 1, 1, 2, and 3, or I beat Tower Knight, and then you can't progress after Tower Knight until you beat an Archdemon. So I'm in World 2, and I just beat the Fire Spider, and I'm in the mines. Like I'm in tunnels that no one should crawl through, and there's like fire worms. It's so bad. Like I mean, it's great, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, so have any of you dabbled beyond that, like into the poison swamp and into the skeleton
I checked them
area?
Out, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to look at what, because you can travel to any of them, maybe with the exception of one. They kind of open up the game for you.
Yeah,
at the
it opens them all up. So I only beat the first boss. I think I'm close to getting to the second in World 1.
Yeah.
And then poked my head into a few of the other worlds just a little bit and was like, nah, we're going to do this more carefully. But again, was just trying to get a little bit of sense of flavor. So not super far. But it did take me a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could see that they made the worlds kind of dramatically different in this one, as opposed to in some of the later ones where you had a lot of kind of, oh, this is a castle, oh, this is a fortress, oh, this is a castle fortress. You know, like they went wildly different in this one.
Yeah, and I love that. And part of it is so charming to me because, again, coming to this with experience from what FromSoft has perfected, I would say. I've always said, and everyone says this, From Software's level design is unmatched. In Dark Souls, specifically, because you'll start the game, and it looks massive and sprawling, and you'll end up over there. And then you'll recognize they do such a good job of shortcutting and opening up gates so that it all interweaves. And you're like, how is this all connected? That's amazing. This one, much more linear in terms of like exploring those worlds. They still do a good job, I think, of the shortcutting.
There's a little bit of that.
Totally. But there's something charming about it just being like World 1-1, World 1-2, like just you travel there, and then that's kind of a level. I like that a lot here, but it's so cool to see how they progressed.
But the way it works is pretty cool. Like you have that path where you're definitely going from beginning to end, and you're traveling, so you're getting that feeling of getting far in a certain direction overall, like, oh, I'm making progress. But also within each one of those, they'll have that one or two shortcuts that bring you right back close to the beginning, so you can say, okay, I made it to this part, let me go back to the Nexus, get ready, spend my souls, get some items, and now I can go a little bit more directly to the second half of this very long level. Notice the levels are kind of long, right? Or maybe you can go right close to the boss. There are only a couple of areas that have annoying like boss runs, but the boss run in this game isn't really much of a thing for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say that first boss presentation where the boss is actually behind the gate at the very start of the stage. And
that's great.
As soon as you're far enough away and unlock that gate, a huge like spear is thrown out. That's so iconic. That's so
good.
epic. And there's moments like that throughout this game that are atmospherically enjoyable. I don't know how else to put it, but that help build out this like haunting, beautiful, scary, I never felt safe. There's not even a pause. The pause isn't even there.
There's no bonfires.
But there's no bonfires, and I thought there would be bonfires.
Pausing is
I
running
know.
back 10 minutes so that you know that everything around you is dead. And then
exactly.
Right. Yeah, you go to a spot you cleared yourself, and even then you're not 100%
Someone
sure.
could
I was
be
like,
wandering.
whoa, no checkpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, though. You mentioned that spear coming out. One cool thing about this game and the majority of Souls games is you see that spear, you can get that spear or a version of it. And like with most bosses, you can get what they're using by using their souls and going through the upgrade system, which was originated here and has continued through all the Souls games. Did you guys get into upgrading at all? Oh, I guess not really, because you had to.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I never had enough souls.
I would love to know everyone's
dead.
weapon choice. Class, I'm glad to know class, that's cool, but what weapon you ended up settling on is cool too. I didn't do a boss weapon. I was assuming that mechanic was in the game when I got the boss's soul, and it has like its own unique name, and I was like, okay, I turn this in and maybe I get a weapon. But I started with the club, with the barbarian, just bashing people over the head with a club, like bam bam, and then I got the winged spear. I don't know where or if it was a drop from an enemy, but it's a spear weapon, and so that's unique for me. I don't do a lot of spear weapons or stabbing weapons in these games, so I used that for a while, and I have the knight sword, and I'm gonna go down the dragon path. I'm gonna make it a dragon knight sword. Yeah, nice. Fire damage. So like the upgrade system's really robust and really adds so much replayability to like builds and stuff.
Yeah.
I had a guide pulled up to make like a fierce knight, and so I was really the only thing that they suggested other than this sword that I had to get by defeating a monster at some point, which I didn't get there, was just getting a claymore, which you can get from relatively early for a few thousand souls, and so I got a claymore after I used as a longsword for the longest time, and then I finally moved over to the claymore.
Did you like the two-handed gameplay? You like that style?
It makes me feel vulnerable, and I'm telling you, I am pretty good at parrying, and so
I feel like you're a sword and board boy.
Yeah.
No,
like,
I saw.
I watched that first play.
You did it first try. In first play, and I was like, bro, I struggle to get them still.
Yeah, I've been playing since 2009, and I don't parry ever. I parried like the Pursuer, and that was it.
Yeah. See, that was my primary thing for the majority of this week was sword and board and parrying because I want to end the battle as quickly as possible, and
big damage.
The only thing I don't love about that is you get locked in the the animation, and you don't get hit. You've got iframes and stuff, but like coming out of it is always weird when you're swarmed by enemies. So, which leads
spam roll.
I don't want to interrupt because Kenny and Eddie, you've got to share what weapons you stuck with or relied on this week. But then I want to share one or two things that frustrated me this week, and I would like to hear some thoughts on that.
Okay, let's hear weapons.
I mean, I was boring. I used a lot of magic because it was
that's
strong early.
No,
so that
great.
was my primary weapon. I picked up other swords as I went. I think I found one that was better than my starting one and equipped it at some point. I didn't get to the point of using, but I did see that there's like an enchant your own weapon spell that got me super hyped.
Yeah,
and so if I got further into the game, that's how I would play
Nice.
it. Is
Diablo
I'd enchant.
Yeah, that's a good way to pump your attack rating. I started off just using my magic and maybe, whatever rinky-dink sword I had. I picked up a magically imbued curved sword in one of the later levels early on and then came back. And then I played most of like the beginning third of the game without upgrading anything, and it was fine. It was easy because I had the magic. Then I hit a wall and I said, "Oh man, I got to upgrade something."
Like
and I didn't know what to upgrade,
point.
and I just upgraded a basic weapon to like +8 at that point. But I ended up getting a sword that I've wanted to try since forever, the Blue Blood sword, which means you have to upgrade your stats evenly. You need 18 strength, 18 dex, 18 magic, 18 faith. So that also kind of made it difficult in the middle game for me because I wasn't min-maxing.
Yeah, it's a lot of souls.
Yeah. And I ended up using that. And then that scales off your luck. Not even off those stats you have to have. So then you have to pump luck for that too.
Wow.
It's a nuts sword.
I love
but
that,
it's pretty
actually.
cool. One thing about the
that's
boss
super
weapons in this game is that in some of the other Souls games, you'll get your boss weapon, and then you, again, still have to go through an upgrade process. In this one, you upgrade to like weird positions on the path for each of your basic weapons, and then when you use that boss weapon, it's like, that's it. That's the weapon.
Oh, that's like your legendary weapon at the end.
So it's kind of like
Whoa.
exploratory in this one because some upgrades are only available at a +3. Some upgrades are only available at a +6. And like you're upgrading your regular weapon, you're like, oh, what is this option? Let me try that. I happen to have this boss soul. Now I have this weird, unique weapon. And then it's set. You don't have to spend any more on it. But yeah,
cool.
Blue Blood sword.
All right, Dustin, let's hear the frustrations.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, I'll give 2, and then I'd love to hear thoughts or rebuttals. So here's 2 quick ones that were persistent throughout my entire experience this week. And I would like to know if maybe it's changed some in the remake. But 1, the combat felt somewhat unresponsive. And so there were often delayed inputs. It felt lagged. I mentioned to Nolan earlier this week, like, look, in these games, I know I'm going to die. And the majority of the time, for example, in my only experience, Sekiro, I those were almost always on me, like nearly 100% of the time. I'm not okay with it, and I'm frustrated by it, but it's on me. In this game, I felt like the majority of my deaths this week was not on me, or at least it was not. It could have been on me, but it was simply on me not because of lack of skill in the moment, but because I didn't. I couldn't feel the momentum that was needed. And being someone that is up close with parry and strike, I felt that a lot. So that's one frustration.
Sounds like a skill issue.
It's not a skill issue.
You're right. Okay, here's the thing. In Sekiro, you're a ninja and you're fast. And it was so responsive. So, of course, yes. That's why I think Elden Ring will be your Souls game, because that game's much more responsive. The Demon Souls, Dark Souls, there is its intended input and response time, and it does take getting used to. And I don't think your mind and hands wanted to get used to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wanted to
you're
move
right.
faster. Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
This one
But
was
you just
much
kinda have to-
more. This one was much more grounded in like its weapon design. They tried to make things really more realistic. You're not doing these wild, crazy attacks. You're not, there isn't a whole lot of that. So a lot of the focus was on this slow, methodical approach to blocking, parrying, and then taking your time to hit, or using the correct weapon for the environment. Do you guys notice that in this game, your weapon will clang off of walls a lot, and way more than in later Dark Souls games? I think Nolan will notice. But that was like a big deal. It was like, do I use a thrust in this narrow hallway, or do I swing the sword? So that was kind of the consideration.
Or do I lure him out
at the
of this
beginning.
hallway?
Yeah. And they kind of got away from that later.
A second issue,
Mm-hmm.
and this might not be something that y'all experience as well. Maybe it was just the way that I was stuck playing, but I felt like it was so item dependent, meaning that you're tossing grass all the time, moon grass.
You're smoking, dude.
You're having to, like it's not only that, but even your offensive items you're having to scroll through and use regularly. Like it just felt so heavily item dependent. And I didn't like that.
I want to hear Kenny's take on that because I feel like Kenny would be pro that. Like I think he's an item guy because to me, there's a lot of games that throw a bunch of items at you that I never touch.
Sure.
So Kenny, what do you? Because I know exactly what he's talking about.
I liked it. I do think it may have been a little heavy-handed. I definitely felt like, oh man, I got to top off my health a little bit too often. But I like that there was things to find. I like that drops felt rewarding when we got to that first boss, and I found that all these like fire potions that I'd been picking up suddenly are like really good for the situation that we've been driving up towards. It's like, okay, this was really helpful and made sense, so that felt thoughtful. So I don't know, that wasn't a huge complaint for me, but it is very item dependent, both on your consumables, but also on just the whole hinge of the gameplay. Like your style of attacks are dependent on which item you have equipped, and so it's big. But once you wrap your head around that, I don't know that it's a negative for me, but it is very distinct.
I see positives and negatives within that whole idea. You have the grass, which is broken up into a variety of different strengths, and that gets pretty annoying. And they changed that for Dark Souls. They made the Estus system, which a lot of people would consider just a wholly better system. Although this is kind of cool too, because you get the choice to go out and purchase those to spend your souls to increase your healing capacity or not. The only problem is you can be left soulless and you can't even get healing items. But as for like items that you use that are not in a part of the healing system, it's really interesting because I see it as a way to even further diversify your options for playstyle. Because you can decide to just ignore all that stuff and just go in and bonk, bonk, bonk. Or you can use those items to, I'm going to enchant, I'm going to buff, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So it's got its positives and negatives to me.
I think it's a breath of fresh air to me because I am used to Estus flasks, which I think is a objectively better system because you start with it, it's kind of crappy, then you can find Estus shards, and with souls you can upgrade it. And it's the same item. You don't have to scroll. How many item slots do you have on the original? 5?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same. They didn't change that. I think 5's a generous little cycle for you to like thumb through on the fly. You're hitting down on the D-pad will cycle through them. So I always had my basic grass, crescent grass. I smoked that, and then I smoked the half moons a lot. And then out of combat, if I was like, dude, I don't want to die right now and I'm almost dead, full moon. It'll like take you way higher. But I was using a lot more items. For example, pine resin. It's called resin in this game, I think. It imbues your sword and just makes it stronger. So you use it in a boss fight. I use that way more than I usually do. I'm more of a bonk bonk kind of guy. But I understand what you mean. There's a ton of items. And then like you're picking up, especially like later when in the mines right now, you're picking up the upgrade shards to that you use to upgrade your weapons, and they have weight, and you collect a lot of them, so much so that you can't sell items in this game. That I had to be like, oh no, because you could get souls by selling crappy extra gear in the new games, but here they give you Stockpile Thomas, who's just an NPC,
just throw everything.
A bank.
Great guy.
Yeah. And
I love that I can just keep everything though.
I hate that.
Not on you though, because you get heavy.
But just I don't have to get rid of it.
I had 4 mail breakers, and I was like, I can't sell these, so I just dropped them. Well, discarded them.
You should be able to sell them.
That's they overwhelm you. They fixed that part. So both of those things that not the first thing, the second thing they do fix later.
That encumbrance though, Nolan, I don't think. Oh, you did play the original. So in the original, you can't.
Yeah.
There's no item, no option in the menu for send to storage. You have to walk. You have to go back to the Nexus and do it. That encumbrance is just the worst part of the game to me, to be honest.
That's a good quality of life.
There's just a send to storage button?
Yeah, if you're full.
Must be nice.
It was. Yeah, I couldn't have done that. That would have driven me nuts.
Aged.
PS3 is weird. And I'm kind of glad, though, that we're getting here. Because, obviously, we always say this, it's retro to somebody. But what's nice about the 15-year gap when we start getting into these catalogs is that you start the playability of these games jumped dramatically between generations. Like when we play games earlier than this, it can be hit or miss, whether it's like, oh yeah, this is easy, I just eased back into this. And then some like truly retro games were like, yikes. So I'm a little excited to start breaking into these years, but it's just so weird.
It is weird. It doesn't feel retro as much as some of the games that we play. I'm also with you. I'm glad we're doing it. For the PlayStation 3 in particular, this might be totally subjective and wrong, but my perception of the PlayStation 3 is that it did not perform near as well with its catalog or performance as the PS2 or the PS4. My understanding is PS2 was God's gift to mankind, is also what I grew up on. The PlayStation 4 was excellent and performed well, but the PlayStation 3 was chunky at first, was expensive at first, and just didn't have the performance or the love as some of the other consoles before and after it. Is that fair? Is that how y'all see it too?
I think Eddie would know best. She covered stuff like this.
I don't think so completely, but I do think that the 360.
All right, never mind. No. I'm just kidding. No, you can go ahead.
The 360 was the more popular console at that point. It was
Absolutely.
like they had Xbox Live Arcade. They had a better online sort of system. Yeah, it was just
servers.
Basically a lot of people just kind of gravitated that way, which means developers focused there. And maybe they would focus on the 360 and the PS3 would kind of be a port. And it had that weird processor that was hard to develop for. Anyway, yes, yeah, I think you're on the right track there, Dustin.
Don't say anything nice now.
I agree. And I think that Demon's Souls is such a good game for this discussion because this game is, I think, hard to get your hands on. It in the States, I don't think performed what not Bandai, Atlas in the States this time expected or wanted. Was this a launch title? I don't think.
No, I got confused.
The new one
because the new one, it was a PS5
the
launch
remake
title.
is a launch title.
What a good launch title for the PS5.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that this was more of a Japanese audience that was like going to sell this game more than us, and so like in the States, I don't know. I think there's fewer copies out there.
There's an important element of this game that is modern games, that I think is part of why this doesn't feel as old when we talk about whether or not it feels retro. But that I'm curious y'all's thoughts on, because it's not like game defining, but it gives a lot of sort of flavor and context. And that is some of these multiplayer sort of passive interactions that you have throughout the game, at least if you're playing like properly and online and when attached to servers and whatever else. I ended up playing in an offline mode this week for just accessibility reasons. But that's a big part of this game, the messaging, the ghosts, the blood stains, and how sustainable that works or not is sort of a reality for how games like this age for getting the real experience. So I think both of those things are conversations worth having that I just thought I'd throw out there.
No, yeah, it's definitely something we should talk about, the multiplayer of this game.
Kenny, Demon's Souls uses async multiplayer, asynchronous. It's something that you and I like to use that word regularly. But guys, is it so? You've got the ghosts, which allows you to leave a kind of a recording of your last moments in a particular area or something. So you've got that, right? They can show, like, it was often used to show, here's a hidden passage, or really more likely to troll people into jumping off cliffs or something.
Absolutely. The latter.
But then also you've got, like, you could do
Co-op.
cooperative play where you can bring in other players playing at the same time, and they can help you defeat bosses and stuff.
And there's
Yeah.
there's even some overt ways of leaving messaging as well, both again for like good and for evil.
So
Lots of trickery
yes.
out
So,
there.
yeah, all of that is worth talking about.
Yes, that is such a smart way to do online. Like, again, that's another thing. As we get into these catalogs, online gameplay becomes such a factor that we didn't really have to account for on like PS2 and before. So yeah, the online here, I don't think, Kenny, that you missed out on your experience this week by not being hooked up to a active server of players.
Yeah.
You didn't. But part of that fun is finding messages, meaning like try rolling, and you roll off a cliff and they're like, all right, got you. But if you read those messages, I don't know if it's in this game, but in future games, it heals the person that left the message. Is that what happens here, Eddie? Do you know?
I don't think that happened in the original. I'm not sure though.
Okay.
It seemed like
on
a
the
new
remake,
thing
you can
later
choose
on.
to foul them.
Yeah, good. Some of those
Give them a
messages are
yellow
terrible.
card?
Basically, yeah, they say something stupid and trolling. Give them a demerit.
Yeah,
Foul.
no, I think they should be.
I think it damages
fouled.
them or something. It's like you better leave some. It encourages people to not troll, but like it's so
troll
balanced
anyway.
because what's cool about that system, it's tied to itemization. It's not a feature in the game. You need to have a specific item in order to do the like co-op joining thing, and I think you need an item to leave a message, or at least you do in the newer
You
ones.
get
so
it
that's a smart way.
but yeah,
Okay.
it's in your
Well,
inventory.
I think
it
it's-
has lore.
It's got the lore reasons. But I think that's a clever way to like keep it at bay so that it doesn't overcome the single player experience, which is the main point of the game.
Yeah, and a lot of those systems have a real risk-reward choice to them. So you can only summon help to make the game easier, to beat some of these bosses or levels, if you're in human form. In human form, you have your full health bar, and if you've died once, you're in soul form, and you have a half health bar, or 3/4 if you have an item. But also in human form, you can now be invaded by black phantoms, other players who are trying to kill you. And in
That are
soul
buff.
form, you cannot be, so you're safe from that.
I knew you'd hate that, Dustin.
No, even if I was
knew it.
playing this when it came out, I would not want to do
Offline.
any multiplayer stuff
Yeah.
because
He'd
that
have just unplugged
And you
his
can,
system.
yeah.
the only thing I would maybe enjoy would be like if you two were playing and could bring one of you or both of you in
Yeah.
to help me with the boss. But
sick.
that also seems like cheating.
It is cheating, and everyone should be ashamed if you do it.
No, it's a difficulty
I've
slider.
never
It's
summoned
an
in my
in-game
life.
difficulty slider, which these games really have a lot of. You kind of can make it easier or harder for yourself.
I think it's a cool feature. And then like we didn't, this is for a gameplay discussion if we had more time, but there's this other thing in this game called world tendency that is kind of a hidden mechanic, kind of not so much. They reveal it, which has its own world of like difficulty and benefits and is tied to whether or not you're multiplayer or human form or not. There's a lot of complex hidden mechanics to discover.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And like lore tied to that, and items and characters that show up, whether you're in pure white or pure black, world tendency. Yeah.
Yeah, the replayability is crazy.
It's interesting to talk about how this game aged because it's a baby, but or a teenager, I guess. But
It's a teenager.
Yeah, not a baby anymore.
Preteen.
I thought the graphics looked fine. They maybe don't look as good as I would have, like in my mind. That it's that thing where when you play games and you think they look amazing and you go back and you're like, maybe that was kind of in my head of how amazing it looked. So I saw some of that. Although I mean, at this time you've got good graphics, so like comparatively speaking, good. But I do think that they age a bit. those are the graphics that I was able to see. Most of this game is so dark that I can't see anything in front of my character.
That's why they renamed it.
And that's partly by design, but partly I think it just makes their job easier too when you do that.
I think graphically, it may not have like really modern. I feel like it's a modern game as far as aging. Like it feels like I'm playing a modern game. It has some clunkiness in some of the micro control issues, but when it comes to graphics, it may not have the shiniest graphics like the remake, which really looks incredible, like one of the best looking games there is. But what they did really well was the art direction. Each of the designs of the world was absolutely incredible. And the atmosphere that they were able to produce with this art direction, with these environments, with the sounds, the music and lack thereof, and the voices of the characters, they created such an atmosphere that it didn't matter if you had top tier graphics, in my opinion.
Or animations. I think that's well said.
And I feel like they were self-aware of what things worked and what didn't. Apparently, in this kind of anecdotal, but in reading about the game, part of the reason that they chose to have the one character with no eyes that you see so much of her
Maiden
was because they felt like the eyes are something they didn't do as well graphically. Like eyes are kind of a weak point for how things look, so let's just make a character with no eyes so
and
that
she looks
look
sick.
amazing.
Because you're looking at her all the time. You're going back to her over and over.
Right.
And she looks so cool. I love that. That's a smart decision.
Smart.
But I will say, the art design and in the atmosphere specifically for this game, no surprise to me because I expected it, is a little bit ahead of its time, I think, actually. Graphics, sure, if you look at them hard enough, you'll start seeing goofy faces, and even the character creator, I think Dustin's face kind of spoke for itself. He was like, wait a minute, this is cursed, and yes, it is. You can make your skin like bright blue, like neon, but like just the world, man, it is so good.
This is not a game in a series, technically, right? This is a standalone game that, as we have already said, has been remade. There is the spiritual successor, which is Dark Souls. And man, I look, I've watched you play some Dark Souls, Nolan. I couldn't distinguish, at least in my head, between Demon's Souls and Dark Souls. Some of what I've watched. In the first play, I'm like, I think I've watched Nolan play through this before I knew that Nolan hadn't played this game before. Like,
I felt exactly the same way.
I can tell you it is way harder than this game. It looks the same. It's way harder than this game.
Okay, but it is very, very similar, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Certainly.
And then you've got the Souls-like subgenre that was spawned from this game that has Bloodborne in it, Sekiro, which we've already talked about. Titan Souls is one that I've played somewhat recently. What are some other... so it's not in this...
Elden Ring, which you've also brought
Elden
up,
Ring.
but is like the biggest game lately.
You've got even like some that were inspired by, so like Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight. Yeah. Those are also kind of Metroidvania, but you've got the die regularly kind of thing and collect souls. Might even be what it is in Hollow Knight. I don't know exactly what it's called. If you want a copy of Demon's Souls for your PlayStation 3, then it's only $10 used or loose, but it's $142 new.
I would have thought way more. Way more.
No.
Also, good luck finding it. Period.
But for the PS5, is it $60-something? Did you pay $70 for this game?
Yeah, I did.
He paid a lot more than that because he bought hardware.
No, actually, no, I didn't. I have PlayStation Plus Extra, and it's in the game catalog, so I downloaded it.
Yeah. So it's either free or $15.
Yeah.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we give our concluding thoughts on the retro game of the week. Let's give our final thoughts on Demon's Souls. We'll let Eddie have the last word. Nolan, start us off.
Yeah, so I was really excited to play this game if you haven't been able to pick up on that yet, because I've heard so much about it from Souls people, and I consider myself a Souls person. And most of what I heard was that it's like very hard, very jank, and very good. But what I found was that it was easier than I expected and felt about as jank as it should. Felt like Dark Souls, and it was just really cool to see the starting point of it. We said this was technically a spiritual successor to Kingsfield, which we played on the podcast, and I do remember, and I remember fondly. So that jump is obviously massive compared to the jump from here to Dark Souls, but I am absolutely going to continue my playthrough. I hope to beat it in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. I'm going to take my time with it, certainly. And it's going to... I don't know yet where it's going to get ranked. I have to play the game all the way through first, but I'm going to do like a tier list when I'm done.
Ooh,
yes.
And so, anyways...
You gonna play Bloodborne first, too?
Maybe I'll exclude it.
Nah, do it.
Okay, yeah.
You
then,
should
yeah.
play it. I've played it.
I know. Well, you played it for
I've
a
dabbled.
few minutes.
I feel like you're
Yeah,
gonna
I'll
like
play
it a
it,
lot.
I think so,
Yeah.
too. I think so, too. So, yeah, it's a fantastic game.
Kenny.
So unsurprisingly, I died a few times.
Me too.
That happens. But I knew I was going to. I, by reputation, knew the kind of game we were signing up for, but haven't done a lot of sort of hands-on experiences with these. I actually think I died less than I expected to, but that's not saying
Royalty.
I didn't still just die so many times. I just assumed this was going to be like a brick wall, and I was just going to be shoving my face into it over and over and over again and having no fun whatsoever. That wasn't the case. Partly that may have been character, that I chose. Partly that may have just been like the reputation was so high that I came in like really daunted about how things were going to be. But it was not quite as bad as I expected things to be. I am very glad that I finally got to like experience one of these Souls-like games, and if it's gonna happen, it might as well be the one that started it all. So that's great. I think Dustin's not completely wrong that it's not like my go-to genre. So I think most of these will probably still stay for me, as I would rather watch them be played through than go through it myself. But that's just because I got to get good. But I recognize that, and I don't mind being that person. I definitely walked away this week appreciative of why this game is as popular as it is, and have a lot of respect for the series and where it started. So
NGP from Kenny. Got it.
That's what I heard.
Demon's Souls is no Sekiro. And I know that is somewhat of an unfair correlation or comparison. Sekiro was my first real Souls-like game.
Just hilarious.
And for some reason, I fell in love with it. I mean, it is rage-inducing and it is frustrating. And honestly, I think on the Butterfly Woman, I spent days. But I've said it before. Playing through and beating Sekiro made me a better gamer, and I have reflexes now that I never had, and I am so much of a better gamer for mini games because of that. And so I think it even transferred to some this week. But I kept bumping my head against the slow, what felt like to me, controls, and the environments were interesting, but I don't prefer that dark fantasy kind of stuff anyways. So that like the setting isn't my favorite, although I do love fantasy. So like I love dragons and I love even like the knight running around, but just the dark demonic fantasy isn't my preferred. However, it was still enjoyable this week to see the begetter of the Souls-like genre, the progenitor, the pioneer. I like being able to go back, and I think it is a good representation of what the series is going to become. I would imagine it only get this series. You understand what I'm saying? But like the Souls-like genre, I would imagine it only gets better. And I think that probably if I would have played the remake this week, that some of my frustrations would have been assuaged, and so it would have probably bumped it up a couple more. But even then, coming back to being able to experience kind of the birthplace of all of this is definitely something that you should do. Although, if you don't like being tortured and punished, you're not going to have a good time, but it will still be worth seeing. Eddie.
Sounds like another NGP to me. I think Demon Souls is one of the most important video games ever to be made. Obviously, it spawned the Soulsborne Ring franchise, and the majority of what's here, I mean, you still feel the same way playing the newer games, just like a little bit worse, a little bit, let's say, regressed as far as the polish. And that's amazing for 15 years ago. And I love that you can play this game and see a different approach to the same thing by From Software, because we mentioned Souls-likes, and I gotta be honest, when people call something a Souls-like and I go and play it and it has none of the vibe of Souls, I just get mad. Like, nobody does it like From Software. It's not just having souls and dying a lot. Like, I could have rings and die a lot and pick them up in Sonic the Hedgehog. It's not the same thing.
Souls-like.
The vibe is immaculate for me in the Souls games, and it started here, and it is so worth revisiting and playing it all the way through if you can, whatever it takes as far as preparation. Play it slow, play it patient, relax, make your way through.
Preparation H.
So good, Demon Souls.
Whatever it takes, even if that means buying a PS5 and a brand new.
Absolutely.
I had
to.
to. I couldn't let you guys down.
I can't believe that happened.
Those are our thoughts on Demon's Souls. What are yours? On our YouTube poll this week, 53% said yes, it's worth playing today. 9% said no, go play something else, which is interesting. And 37% have never played it before, which is also interesting. But only 2 people played the PlayStation 3 anyways, which I gave that a little bit more thought. That was the era of Wii and Xbox 360, both I would imagine outperformed, and it was the era where things were moving away from exclusivity. So that Xbox 360 was the first time I didn't play a Final Fantasy game on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So like,
this was an exclusive, so a lot of people did miss this.
It was a totally different world.
Yeah.
We had many play along with us this week and write in their thoughts. Here are a few. Clint said, my first experience with FromSoft was actually my first live stream content playing Dark Souls 3 streamed from my PS4 in college. I had no idea what I was doing and barely managed to make my way past the tutorial. Never thought I'd touch another one of these titles again after that. Then Elden Ring came into my life and I fell in love with these clunky, stupid, obnoxious babies. The cruel and unfair enemy placements, the fantastical and also cruel and unfair boss fights, the endless number of times I fell to my death. I loved all of it, with only the occasional vulgar outburst. I recently played through Dark Souls 1, and I couldn't be more pleased with the incredible quality of Demon's Souls as well. It's certainly not for everyone, but everyone should try it.
Yes.
I love that Elden Ring probably did that for a lot of people, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
I think I'll get around to it.
You have to, man. That will click for you for sure.
Just play all of them.
Kyle B said, what a wonderful, weird game. The positives, the bosses tend to have a weakness that's fun to learn and exploit. The levels are challenging but rarely feel unfair, barring the Valley of Defilement. The atmosphere is wonderful and kind of ghost-like. The world tendency is poorly explained but wildly interesting. The music is astounding, probably my second favorite in the series. There are many negatives of the game, too. The handling can be clumsy. The entire Valley of Defilement, especially on the PS3, is a nightmare. The frame rate drops in the Valley remind me of modern AAA titles on release. The soul form mechanic can feel really punishing, especially if you don't find the ring. The weapon upgrades are annoyingly complex. The item burden is annoying as well. Demon's Souls is a wonderful game. that not everyone will like, but fans of the series should definitely play. These are all sounding similar. You're going to hate it, but definitely try it.
Nolan, you thought Blighttown was oppressive? Where do you get to the Valley of Defilement?
Yeah, I've heard. That's why I smirked. Blighttown in Dark Souls 1, for those of you who don't know, is not okay. It is not okay.
Tess said, so I've been playing through Demon's Souls this week without leveling up.
Insane.
And as of this writing, I'm bashing my head against the final boss.
Ooh.
Demon's Souls is the archetypal Souls game. It sets the trend in so many ways that set up Dark Souls to be the massive cult hit that it was. Dodgy NPCs, a world that lies to your face, enemies hiding around corners, the souls as currency for leveling in shops, and the unusual inclusion of samurai and kunai in the traditional Western fantasy setting. It laid the foundation for both the genre and director Miyazaki to have enough autonomy to create Dark Souls. Overall, an obtuse game with confusing mechanics that end up coming together for a fantastic experience. New Game Plus for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. These are all really accurate commentaries, so I'm not mad. I haven't been mad on this whole episode, actually.
Yeah, it's surprising.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible
I
to
could change it if you
recognize
wanted.
how good the game is, even if you hate it, which is unusual.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to give it up.
And here's the thing, I'll be honest, if it wasn't the first, then I'd probably say no, do a Dark Souls thing, but being that it's the first and a good representation of what the series becomes, I think it's something definitely worth playing. But like everyone else is saying, you're going to hate it. One last comment, it's just very quick. Swift Pilot Ben, haven't heard from him for a while, he's been in the air.
What's up, Ben?
I gave us a poem or something. This is what it says.
Haiku?
Yeah, maybe. The real Demon's Souls starts here. Beware of strong enemies ahead. Try rolling. Treasure ahead. Don't give up, skeleton.
Yes.
Messages that idiots online leave.
Oh,
Those are all standard messages from Demon's Souls.
That was so good,
Yeah, really
Ben.
good.
That was so good. Try rolling.
That's really funny. For now, we're setting aside Demon's Souls, Nolan's not, and we're going to randomly select the game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days, 15 years old or older, even if it's oh, by the way, I don't know if y'all even know, Eddie reached out to me, I think maybe in November or December of just this last year, wanting to do this game, but it wasn't yet time, so we had to wait
Eddie's
until
the
it
goat
was.
for that. You're the goat.
I
for
didn't
that.
know if
That's
you
sick.
were going by year, like January 1st it would be eligible, or if we had to wait till the release date.
It's really funny. But we got as close as we could. All right. 15 years old or older. There's a lot of games in this Retro Master list. Randomizing now. We are technically staying in the genre. This is an action role-playing game. So it's not technically at all, I guess. But the full description it gives is arcade action role-playing maze game.
Kenny.
No.
I'm intrigued.
Released
I'm worried.
exclusively in Japan
Oh, now I'm extra worried.
No, I'm intrigued.
for
We
the
just flopped.
for the NES or the the Famicom.
Sure.
No, I'm intrigued.
1984,
Okay.
developed and published by Namco.
I'm definitely on board with this.
Super interesting. It will be unlike a lot of the games that we played recently.
And it was far in the other direction from Demon's Souls.
Yeah, very far. The game that we're going to be playing for the next 7 days has us controlling the golden armored knight Gilgamesh, and scaling 60 floors of the titular tower in an effort to rescue the maiden from Druaga. We are playing the Tower of Druaga.
Have I heard of this?
It's a video game.
It's a video game for sure. I think I have heard of this.
Eddie, have you?
Sounds cool.
Maybe, but it's not standing out in my memory, but I'm going to play it.
Yeah. We all
So
are.
we didn't get it in the States, or you didn't get it?
Japan
Just-
only.
That can
I
be
don't
really
think
good
it's ever been
sometimes.
over.
I'm excited.
The Wii Virtual Console had a version of it. So
Cool.
I hope the lore is good.
hold on. Spin-offs? Anime series? What? All right, we're going to find out all of this and more. Find a copy of the Tower of Druaga and play it along with us this week.
Join our Discord server, would you? It's free to you, and we're always in there. me and Kenny are like, we hold it down. Dustin shows up sometimes. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
I don't want to look, and I haven't in a while, but it's been months, I think, since Kenny's been in there. Months.
Maybe
that is not
something.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, you can be somewhere and not say something.
It's your podcast.
Well,
He
yeah.
lurks in his own podcast.
And I'm a wallflower. That's how it works. You can also vote for the fact that I have autonomy by going to patreon.com/NGP podcast and supporting the ongoing creation of the retro gaming content that you crave. You'll be joining people like Jason Retro. I think that is his actual last name.
Sure.
Mr. Retro joined us as a new patron this week for the first time, so thanks, Jason. You could also join our illustrious list of producer-level supporters, including Alex, Alias X, Marlian, Antonin, Arlen, Yuki, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock, Shadow, Garlisle, Hallex, Harold, J. Robert, Jake, Jordan, Joey, Justified, Justin, Kenny's Beard, Clint, Corey, Levi, Maximum, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Rift Sage, and Shane, Shauna, Stephen Fox, Psycho Mantis, Thomas Turtle, Unbelievable, and Zion. Of course, big thank you to our director-level supporters, Bro Jim Super Hyper, the Kentucky Kid, Siegfried, and this week especially to Eddie from Smashing Bricks Retro Gaming Podcast. Thank you for hanging out, for giving us the excuse to play this game, for sharing your thoughts, your time, all of the stuff. This was your episode, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. This was great.
Eddie, we've talked about at the front of the episode, but where would you like people to find you online?
At their second favorite retro gaming podcast, Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast. You could find it wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. And from there, you'll find all the rest.
You can find us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you're the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by our friend Dave. Video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play the Tower of Druaga. Until then, I'm still dead.
I'm also dead.
I'm alive, and I'm going to kill every boss in the game first try.
Who are you, Eddie? Ooh. And Kenny is specifically the old one who let fog into the town. And this has been New Game Plus.